I find myself staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep since the pandemic started, with a deep healing feeling in my heart. I feel like I'm in a spaceship hurtling in deep space without a final destination. If you've had similar experiences, then you're not alone. This Mental Health Awareness Month, we want to raise the discussion on the experience of grief by creating a safe space where we can talk about it, acknowledge its existence, and find meaningful ways on how we can cope. I'm your host, Stephen Koo of Echo Channels, and welcome to our fourth episode of Restart, where we will talk about wellness, specifically mental health. If we can name it, then perhaps we can manage it. In the context of the present pandemic, the topic of feelings of discomfort, inability to focus, procrastination, and the feelings of laziness have been raised in discussions in publications, social media, and online platforms. Let's take a look at what's trending today.
The COVID-19 pandemic is not only a medical crisis, but a psychological one. Along with the collective anxiety, stress, and sadness comes collective loss and sorrow. Loss can shake our senses of self. Many of us will have to cope with the loss of loved ones in the midst of this pandemic. Many are also grieving their sense of safety, of social connection, of financial security.
According to a study released by the American Psychological Association, which you just saw, we are collectively grieving for the loss of our lives as we once knew it. According to an article published by the Harvard Business Review, we are going through a collective experience of grief. Some studies claim that it's affecting more people than the virus itself as it takes on many forms. Almost instantly, we experience moments in our lives that we didn't know wouldn't be our last for a while. Our last hangout, last party, and even our last time to shop in a mall. As we distance ourselves in isolation and silently wait in uncertainty for the world to heal, another threat to our well-being has slowly crept in: the experience of grief and how it affects our well-being. To try and shed some light on these seemingly unexplainable feelings that we are collectively experiencing and weigh in on whether or not it's grief or some other form, with me today on this special episode is our panel of specialists from different fields and a very influential mental health advocate. First, the happiness doctor and psychoneurologist Leah Bernardo. Next, modern sage, life mentor, founder, and chief healing specialist of the World Institute for Incurable Diseases, Master Delpe. Psychiatrist, Dr. Jerome Go, and mental health advocate Solen Husaf Bolzico. Hi guys, welcome to the show. Are you guys all feeling okay today?
Yes, thanks for having us.
Before we go deep into the discussion, we're gonna bring in a segment called Hot Takes, where we ask everybody one question, and you have to answer with one answer. So the question is: has anybody recently approached you to consult or confide feelings of inexplicable discomfort and sadness, or have you personally felt this? Yes or no? Share your answer right now. Okay, Master. So it's a resounding yes with beautiful big yes signs there. And we also asked the audience actually to answer this question. So we're actually going to bring up that poll right now. So the results are, have you felt inexplicable discomfort and sadness lately? Okay, we don't have the results yet, but we're going to get to that in a while. In the meantime, we'd like to encourage our viewers to ask questions. We're going to have a Q&A with all of our special guests today. But in the meantime, we'd like to promote that we have a special Facebook group, the Restart Wellness Group, where we invite you guys to join so you get access to exclusive workshops and content, as well as be part of the community. Right now, it's time for us to go to the slant. So today we sought the help of experts to shed some light on what they're feeling, and we'd like to ask everybody this one same question. The question is, how do you guys define grief, and how do you personally perceive it from both the professional and the personal side? So maybe we'll start off with Dr. Jerome Go.
Okay. Well, grief in essence is a feeling of loss, and when you experience loss, it is something often painful or always painful for all of us. This thing that happened to us right now, this pandemic, has given us a change. And grief is a change that we do not want. So feelings of sadness, feelings of down, sometimes we just don't understand, we feel heavy. Those are kinds or forms of grief. And grief can take forms like death or non-death. But ultimately, it leads to a feeling of sadness, heaviness, and eventually causes disruption in a person's life.
Okay. Master Delpe, would you like to define what you think is happening right now? Is it grief that we're feeling, or is it a mental health issue?
Yeah, my experience of grief is derived from the bereavement or the loss of a loved one, and it leads to sorrow. It leads to bewilderment when it is not managed, or it can be a remorse when there's guilt added to it, or it can be a aloofness. Our typical case of the pandemic, it is a mixed feeling of many things. So I would say it's the feeling of sorrow and sadness because of the loss of our freedom, our old lives, and also our old connectivity. So I think that is how we can look at grief through the pandemic. But individually, we're also experiencing loneliness and sadness, sorrow, and lamentation of the loss of our freedom.
Okay. How about you, Leah? Is there a difference between the personal grief and what everybody's feeling now, which is pretty much collective in a sense?
Yes, and also it really is a sense of loss, but I think more than anything, it really is about being in discomfort because all our externals have been put on hold. And so this is the time where people really have no other choice but to spend time with themselves, and they're not used to that. And so I think the word grief that people are using now is just for labeling purposes, because what it is that it's people are really being forced to look at themselves, examine themselves, and develop a relationship with themselves. And change is probably the most I would say it's the scariest thing to the unconscious mind. And so it's something that the unconscious mind really goes against and tries to fight. And that's exactly what's happening right now. People are trying to get used to being with themselves.
Okay, well, speaking of being with themselves, it's a totally opposite experience for Solen right now, who's a new mom, of course, and she became a mom right after the whole quarantine started. So, Solen, I mean, as a new mom and living with your family, how is grief defined for you right now?
Well, there are two sides to the story. Obviously, me being at home during the times now where she is actually growing up is probably the best thing that could happen to me and to her because the bonding is there. And usually a mom wants to be part of the first few months of her child and not be at work. So that's the positive outcome of this. But obviously you're thinking, okay, why am I bringing this child into the world when this is what we have to offer the children at the moment? You're uncertain of, can she go run in like a year from now? Will she be able to have social skills with other people? There's a lot of uncertainties as to, where the world is going because as humans, we are creatures of routine. And once that routine is broken, we kind of get lost in our thoughts. And the more you think, sometimes you just spiral downwards because you usually think negative things when you're stuck at home. So for me, that's my stage right now. It's very confusing. It's happy and sad at the same time.
Okay, that's a good point you made there, Solen. Actually, since you mentioned, the point about babies, I've been talking to a lot of couples who are stuck at home right now, and there's a big chance that they can actually make babies right now, but they're holding back because of the fear and that they don't want to raise a kid in this type of world right now. So that's a good point that you brought up. Okay, right about now we are going to have Dr. Jerome and Leah on cam as we bring you the first part of the slant. We'll bring you back, Master Delpe and Solen, in a bit.
Okay.
All right. So at this point, we want to discuss conventional approaches as to how to manage this grief or this discomfort that everybody's feeling right now. So as the diplomate of the specialty board of the Philippine Psychiatry, Dr. Drongo, and the only and one of only 2 doctors in the Philippines practicing psychoneurology. Leah Bernardo, please help us with some definitions. First of all, I want to clarify the different definitions of the sciences that you guys represent. So there's psychology and psychiatry, and there's psychoneurology. Do you mind shedding some light into this? Dr. Jerome, please start.
Oh, okay. Well, when you address somebody as a psychiatrist, psychiatry is a specialty field of medicine. So first, we have to take up a preparatory course for medicine, which is a 4-year bachelor degree, and then proceed to a doctor of medicine degree. And then afterwards, you take your internship and proceed to a choice of specialization. And to me, I chose psychiatry, which is similar to other specialists like a cardiologist or a gastroenterologist. We are specialists in our field. Now, as doctors of medicine, we can actually diagnose, prescribe, and talk to our patients just the same and do psychotherapy.
Okay, so it's more medical. When you say psychiatry, you can prescribe medicine, and psychology is really more talk therapy, essentially, right?
Well, we also do talk therapy, but I think it's just a matter of approaches. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Maybe
Leah, you want to tell me something about psychoneurology? Because these are options that our viewers may want to pursue.
Yes, it's actually, people will have a choice on the approach that they want to take. In psychoneurology, we go towards spirit, mind, body integration. So we take into consideration a more holistic approach, meaning we go up to nutrition, up to thought patterns and behavioral patterns, and we use ancient wisdom or spirituality to redirect thought patterns and behavioral patterns into belief systems that support the individual.
Got it.
So these are 3 very different approaches.
Yeah, I can see that it's almost like at the end of the spectrum, especially with our next guest, Master Delpe. But right now, my question is for Dr. Jerome Go. I'm sure your hotline is burning. As a psychiatrist, what are the common mental concerns and disorders that you are receiving right now?
Well, the most common would definitely have to be the mood disorders and the anxiety disorders right now. As I've said, we are facing a pandemic that nobody has ever been prepared for. COVID is something that probably most of us are experiencing we are experiencing this kind of pandemic first time ever in our lifetimes. And many people are traumatized. Many people are worried. Many people are anxious as to the change that we are forced to accept. And when there is a change, it's because we lost something. That loss of routine, loss of sense of how we learn, how we know the world to be. And this loss is something frightening because we're not familiar. And we are all learning how to adjust and cope to the new normal together. And many of us aren't coping that easily or that well. So it's something that is worrisome. So right now, there's a lot of people going through anxiety. There's a lot of people going through depression. Many of those who have recovered are somehow also having a relapse of some sort. And because of the compromise in our healthcare accessibility right now, other disorders, such as the psychotic disorders, schizophrenic patients, or patients with schizophrenia, may have a problem maintaining their condition as well. So this is a very troubled time for a lot of us. That's why we make ourselves accessible to our patients the best way we can.
Okay, that's good to know, Doc. My question is, what's the first thing that you do though? Like, do you prescribe them medicine right away? Is it, or you do talk therapy first? Like, what are the normal steps that you would undertake if you are to engage a psychiatrist?
Well, the first thing I suppose is to talk to the patient, to identify what the patient is going through. Because, some patients may feel they're depressed, but in reality, they are not, So sometimes you have to clarify because there are misconceptions also. The first approach, nowadays therapy is usually participative. We ask our patients what they want. And, sometimes what they want is the best recourse that we could approach. But if we think otherwise, that, we have other alternatives that we could offer, such as, sometimes meditation, sometimes medication. So to each his own, whatever floats your boat. But as psychiatrists, I think it's very important for us to guide our patients to the best recovery possible for him.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Now, I'd like to address the question to Leah. How does negative emotions, you mentioned a while ago that you specialize in mind-body connection. How does negative emotions affect the mind and the body when left unattended to? Like most of the time we take this for granted.
Yes, studies have already shown that a lot of physical disease is really a result of an emotional foundation. So there is, and stress is, everyone knows that it's already considered the number one cause of all diseases. And so your emotional well-being is so important, not just to your happiness, but also to your physical health. And what's happening right now is that people are so uncertain and so unsure of what their future holds, which is why there's so much anxiety happening. And everybody is worried about where they're going to go, what their present is going to be, but more so what their future is going to look like. And so what we do is I actually teach them how to calibrate to their feelings, to be okay with not being okay, first and foremost, and to empower people to understand that they have the power to change the way they're feeling through raising their frequency or raising their vibrational state. Once you are in sadness, for instance, it really is a choice to stay there. And I know this can be very daunting for some people who are experiencing extreme sadness. And it's really a process in which we calibrate our patients, our students, into really calibrating themselves to feeling good, regardless of their external environment. So there's a lot of self-care and self-nurturing involved in the program that I do.
That's good. Actually, Doc Lee, I've had the pleasure of attending one of your workshops, right? And you really you really teach how to change your mood from sad to happy. You are actually in control of that part. So that's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I want to ask you both again, naman, another question. How do you guys spot symptoms that you need to consult a specialist already? It's not something that you can just talk to with your friend, or you can Google. I mean, how can you spot these symptoms? Dr. Jerome, you can
Well,
start.
when you talk about symptoms, I think there are two forms to spot it. First, there is that person's subjective feeling that he is sad. A person may recognize that he is feeling down, feeling depressed. Grief is a complicated form of depression is a complicated grief. When you are depressed as a disorder, it is becoming more persistent. Sometimes you no longer want to feel sad, but you still continue to feel sad. You already want to get out of the sadness, but the feeling remains so down, so low. And of course, it affects your daily living. It affects your life. There are other vegetative symptoms like sleeping, eating that are disrupted. There are feelings of anhedonia, or the things that you used to feel pleasure with, you enjoy, are no longer as enjoyable now. So these are symptoms that you can recognize. But sometimes there are also people who can't recognize these symptoms, and we validate the responses of relatives or informants, such as the wife, the spouse, the children, who might be able to notice these symptoms on the patient. So I think it's very important for us to consider information not only from the patient himself, but also from the other people around him.
Okay, that's good, Doc. Leah, I mean, especially for people who are living alone, how can you spot these symptoms? Like, you don't have family members around you to really tell you, you're going through something.
And this is what I always advise. Don't wait till you're feeling bad. If I go into a room full of people and I say, who here wants to be happier? Every single person will raise their hand, but nobody knows how. And so get the how while you're still feeling good, so that when you're feeling bad or when you're feeling discomfort, you know what to do, because these are life skills, these are resources that you need to have literally in your own personal toolbox, because each person is different. And so each person will have coping skills. Like my coping skills will be very different from yours or from Dr. Go. So we need to really calibrate to ourselves when we're feeling good, so that we know what to do, because we're all human beings. And we will at a certain point feel a certain degree of discomfort. And when that happens, be ready. Yes.
Yeah. So Lee, you're saying is you have to remember that feeling of being happy, so that when you're sad, you know how to bring yourself back to that happy state. Is
You
that
know
what
what it takes to get there again.
correct? Okay,
Yes.
okay, that's good. Okay, right about now we have a video question from one of our viewers, and we're gonna pull that up right now.
Good afternoon. I'd like to ask your thoughts, and maybe you can also share your personal experiences based on this question. In a situation where a lot of people, a lot of tasks, depends on your leadership, whether it be at work or in your household, how does someone protect himself or herself from being thrown into this experience of grief while trying to provide the healing itself for others? Thank you.
Okay, so did you guys hear that? Okay, so the question is, how does someone protect him or herself from being thrown in this experience of grief while also trying to heal others?
I think one tip that I could share with the one who asked the question is to live at the moment, because right now this is a very challenging time for us. It's a very unfamiliar territory. All of us are struggling. I think when you live at the moment, you can plan things at the moment. You can currently take control. You will feel empowered, because sometimes, because of what's happening, we tend to experience anticipatory grief, or we anticipate too much, we worry too much. And so as we live at the moment right now during these very unfamiliar times, we can somehow be more in control of the situation that we're living in, and slowly learn our ways and cope as the days come by.
Yeah, that's good. That's good advice. When living for the moment, though, is particularly tough when you're living in the moment within the confines of the four walls of your apartment or your condo. So I mean, it's tough, right? But I mean, how do you guys propose to live in the moment given that scenario? Leah, you want to add anything to that also?
Yes, because I totally agree. You need to live in the moment, and the way to do it is to take care of your needs first. You need to take care of yourself first before you can even be anywhere remotely near being able to take care of other people. And that's what a lot of people seem to forget, where they feel like other people need them, and so they will they'll lessen their self-care to be with others, when in fact you need to give the excess. So you need to take care of yourself first, so that you can be 100% available in taking care of other people.
Okay, so live in the moment and take care of yourself first, so that you can take care of others. So that's okay. Those are two really good advice. Okay, right now we are going to just pull up the results of the FB poll that we put out, asking the question: have you felt inexplicable sadness or discomfort lately? And right now it's a resounding yes, 85%. And there are still those who are still living life without this feeling, and that's very hopeful for us. But we do hope to increase the answers for no in the preceding shows. Right now, we will take you guys off stage for a while, Doc Jerome and Leah, as we bring in our other two guests. Some people believe in the conventional, but some people are opening their minds to the alternative. It's normal to feel daunted and frustrated with the big things that we are currently that's currently happening, but we can't change. But we can still find means to get a hold of things that we can, starting with ourselves and our minds. So right now we are with the founder of the International Convention of Higher Consciousness. He is a modern sage, a life mentor, and of course the chief healing officer or spiritualist of his company, Mr. Master Delpe, and visual artist, and of course a good friend of mine, mental health advocate Solen Husaf. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sana introduction
Okay.
ako na ganyan,
Oo
master.
nga eh. Ikaw, mistress soon. Sorry, hindi pala pwede. Iba pala ibig sabihin nun. I'm sorry. Okay, so I'll start off with Master Delpe. Since you're a healing expert and you have created your own healing modality, I've listened to some of your talks and I've chatted with you for a while, and I know you're doing great work. Can you walk us through what that's like?
Well, you can call it energy medicine, or you can call it alternative or integrated medicine, or just a healing science. I started this 40 years ago because I believe the Philippines have that power and the ancient wisdom has that power. So I had 4 mentors who gave me some training and awakening. And this makes use of the different layers of the aura. There are 4 layers of the aura: the physical and the vitality called prana, then the emotional aura, and then the mind's aura, and the spiritual aura. When a person is sick, you can see the templates in the aura, and you can remove those imbalances, or you can give energy when there's depletion, or you can subtract when there's congestion, like COVID-19, a lot of subtraction of the congestion. Now, there's energy in the body that's controlling the glands, the hormones, the organs, every psychological responses. So we do see it, or we have the psychic eye to look at them. So we use this to heal the person's physical, energetic, emotional, and mental, or other imbalances. So this is how we do it, and I'm the international founder for the system in the United States, and I'm bringing it to the Philippines.
Okay, that's good. I'm going to get back to you, Master, because I have a lot of questions for you. But for now, I'm going to ask Solen. You're very influential, very popular, very beautiful at that as well. And why have you chosen mental health as your advocacy? You can have so many advocacies, but why mental health?
I think it's important to bring up mental health nowadays because of, technology. Although now we're living on technology because of the pandemic, but I think people have forgotten to, be in touch with themselves, be in touch with the way they're feeling, because we have all these gadgets to kind of, help our feelings go away for a moment. I also think that based on a lot of friends and a lot of things I've read in the recent years, a lot of teenagers are going through mental depression when you'd think, you're still very young, you're still a child. Why would you be depressed or mentally challenged because of the things they're going through? And I think people are scared to talk about it because they feel like, okay, let's say I'm feeling depressed because my friend is doing what I've wanted to do for a long time and I can't do it. They tend to keep these feelings in, and by bottling those feelings, things just pile up and pile up and pile up, and they don't think it's important enough to talk about it. But the thing is, with mental health, you need to talk about whatever you're feeling, no matter how little or how petty you think it is, because the moment you kind of put that aside, that's when things get dangerous and can spiral down. So I just want to help the younger generation out there.
So this is because of the environment you're in. Like, you see a lot of them in your environment, like your workplace. I guess in show business and all of that. Okay, Master, we were having a conversation before the start of the show where we were discussing that there was a difference between mental health and emotional health, and people are confusing the two, thinking that emotional health is also the same as mental health. Can you shed some light?
Yeah, I have said earlier that there's different layers of aura and consciousness. Like the Einstein will have more energetic conditioning on the mind, but less the aura, like the geeks, the nerds. The Mother Teresa type would have more emotional conditioning than the mind, but less physical. The sports people are more physical and more either mental or emotional. So there are 8 types of clients and 8 types of human design. So by looking on their energetic profile, if they need more emotional counseling or therapy, or if they're more mental counseling or therapy, or they need more exercises and power. So
Yeah, I think we're
along
losing
the
Master
chart.
Del Teo.
When people are really emotional, envy, yeah, they have all kinds of side effects emotionally. And around 70% of human beings' problems are very, like most of the Asian culture or Latino culture, I find a lot of my patients have more emotional problems than mental. For Swiss, German, Singaporean, they're more mental. So when I apply the healing modality, I have to look at the 8 types of profile, look at their energy patterns. Like if I'm healing COVID-19, for example, or HIV, I see that a lot of people with HIV in New York City are different from South Africa. So these are all the definitions by which I look at health. And they are called psychological health, this mental, emotional. But there are a lot of people who are sick because of psycho-spiritual conditions, like the dark night of the soul, which I've propagated in my books, that there are people who are really crying. They don't know why. They are trapped into the inner loneliness and yearning that the soul imposes when they want to awaken and evolve. And they usually happen when they are before their birthdays or between the birthdays. They tend to be stimulated with the dark
Yeah,
night of the
that
soul
happens to
every
me a
year.
lot. That happens to me during my birthday, Master.
Okay.
So I guess I'm
Yeah.
encountering that loneliness of the soul pre-birthday.
Yeah, there's
So
also
then
the 7-year cycle.
yeah, so then if you want to
When
ask
people are
Master any
34,
questions,
No, I think it's well, because when it's your birthday, it's change of a year. Just like how a lot of people are also, they say, depressed more during Christmas season, because that's the time where, a New Year's coming. You're supposed to be to achieve bigger things, or it's Christmas. You're supposed to be happy. You're supposed to be with family. There's a lot of supposed to as human beings, so that's when the loneliness or the depression happens, when you're kind of
that's true. That's true.
put to the
Master,
stereotype of having to be happy.
Master, I'm a big believer in energy healing. I've actually attended some sound healing sessions, and it really works because they say the body is made up of, I think, 70% water. So if you can create vibrations in water, then you can manipulate your body. My question is, how do you bring it down to the ordinary person's level and make them feel that this is an alternative that is worth trying and not something that feels like a little bit out of this world and scary for them to try, especially for the first timers?
Yeah, I usually focus on rekindling their willpower. Most people do have a lot of heart and mind, but their willpower is really the lowest. In any patient that I've seen, they focus a lot on emotional healing, mental healing, but what is really missing sometimes is the willpower, the will to be, the will to overcome crisis, even in terms of sorrow or loneliness. When the willpower goes down, sorrow, loneliness goes up. It's inversely proportional. So with anxiety and depression. So I can switch on the willpower through exercise, through breathing, and through a certain alignment of will. And then all the sadness, grief, all goes down. It's inversely even maybe another depression. Just increase the willpower through breathing and exercise. And then all their down. So there's a time that willpower is the antidote to make and not just a sharp mind.
Oh, just to let everybody know, Master Del Teo is actually in his retreat farm over at Ilocos Norte. So that's actually why I guess the signal's a little bit choppy, but I'd love to visit there after the quarantine is done. On a more personal approach, Solen, like we've heard from a lot of the experts, but like from a layman, how do you handle, or what's your personal method on addressing this type of grief or sadness that everybody's feeling right now?
Well, I think talking is very important. I think people need to remember that the simplest things are the ones that help the most. So I try to talk to friends and families about the way I'm feeling. You need to be in touch with your feelings as well, and know that, if you're feeling sad, it's okay. Because the moment you say, why am I feeling sad? It's not normal. That's also where things get bad. And, as human beings, we're human. We're not robots. So it's okay to feel, sad. Some people tend to not be able to recognize when they are sad. And for me, like little things like me snapping at someone or just being frustrated with things that I shouldn't be frustrated with, that's how I know that I'm going through something, because I'm not much of a crier. But yeah, it's a little difficult. But I think nowadays people are, they're kind of going through this, and getting to know themselves again, and they're getting to know their feelings, being in touch with their feelings. So I think a lot of people will come out during this pandemic, and also will come in better because they'll be more in touch with themselves.
Yeah, I guess also living with Nico makes every day so much fun, right?
That
Because
is very hard.
he's such a crazy character. Okay,
Yeah.
so right now, just to update again, our poll is saying that yes, 84% are feeling discomfort and sadness, and there are 16% who are not feeling this discomfort and sadness. I'm really happy for those guys. All right, so right now we have a video question from a good friend of mine, Sanya Smith, and here's the question.
Hello, guys. Hope everyone is safe and well. I do have a question for y'all. So a lot of us like to turn to the things that they're most passionate about. For some, it's music. Some, it's art, or it's sometimes just being in the kitchen and creating a comforting meal. But sometimes those things don't even work when you're feeling really down. And when that happens, what do you do? All right, thanks, guys. Bye.
All right, so I guess you guys can both answer this. Let's start with Master Delpe.
Thank you. There's a time that you need the rescue part of your healing, and there's a time you need the therapy healing, and there's a time you need the management. For example, for grief management or your anxiety management, I can look at whether you need the grief rescue from you, because some people grief or sorrow, or do you need the grief therapy where you process your anger, your remorse, your guilt, and any accompanying compounded emotions, or do you need a crisis manager where I can coach you, mentor you to use your mind to solve the situations, for example. So in your case, I look at your energy, and I think you need, again, that willpower, because when everything is not working, you're talking to people, you are doing your artwork, you're doing your business, you're happy with your family, but something is yearning in you that is so lacking, that you have this inner loneliness that you cannot release even you sleep well for 8 hours. So I will go again for willpower development, increasing will, stamina to metabolize your energy and make sure that you're above the resistance of health. So that would help me maybe jolt out your energy, like kind of jumpstart the car when they are like almost running low. And I'm happy to say that we are offering a free lecture on the willpower development for life crisis.
Yeah, we're going to do that next week.
Day.
Yes, we're going to do that
we're
next week.
It for free so that we can help the fellow Filipinos to be able to cope up. Because I think willpower is still one of the missing link in many therapy. And all the adversarial conditions, we need a lot of will to combat the economic recession, the pandemic, and even our isolation.
That's a good point, Master. So basically what you're saying is, if you run out of things to reach out to, like, for example, creative outlets and all of that, what you really have to work on is what's inside, because that's the part that will really get you through all this, not the external things. And speaking of creative stuff, I mean, Solen, you are an amazing visual artist, so I'm sure you can relate to Sanya. How do you actually use this creative process to actually, get you out of the slump at times?
Yes, so me, well, it's art, and basically when I'm in front of my canvas, I have a blank canvas. It's like if I'm angry, I just like throw paint on it. If I want to be more precise, then I try to do, how do you call it, nature to kind of bring me out of the space I'm in. But at the moment, I really haven't been painting because I have zero inspiration, because I guess I'm just stuck at home. So the inspiration just kind of left out the window. So what I am doing now to cope is just breathing exercises, meditation. I do 5-minute meditation. That doesn't even need to be long. You don't have to be a professional and know what to do. It can be as simple as just breathing in and out at the same pace and very slow. So that's what I've been doing currently since I've been uninspired to bring out my emotions on the canvas.
Totally agree with you on the meditation. I mean, like, I was a skeptic before, But then meditation just really calmed me down, and in fact helped me even with creative process, and thinking of new business ideas to get through this whole crisis. So yes to meditation, and I'm sure Master Delpe will agree. Right now we are bringing
Yeah.
in all of our guests back. So
So
Leah
it looks
and
like
Dr.
Solon
Jerome,
has a composure.
Sorry.
your aura now is composed because Master
Oh,
can see
really?
your aura.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
because
good.
when I look at somebody's aura, I know when they're really composed, they're internally living the moment, as they say, or they are really worried. And looking at you, you don't look like a word mother. I think you look like a very solemn but in control type of person, and at the same flowing because you're very composed. So I think that's a great thing to have through meditation or through whatever you're doing.
I have to agree. I know her personally. I know she's a very composed person. How about me, Master? What's my aura?
Let us see. Oh, well, you will probably have more money soon.
Sige, sige. I'll ask you off cam na lang. All right, right now we're gonna
Camera.
bring back Doc Jerome and Leah. We're gonna answer some questions from the audience. So please send in your comments. And the incoming question that we have right now is: some of us are able to spot others' anxiety and depression faster than they admit it to themselves. For such cases, how can we be good support people to them, especially if they refuse to accept that they have anxiety? So what do we do if if they're in denial, basically? So maybe let's have Doc Jerome answer this first.
Well, there's a big proportion of people who also deny that they are going through something. That's why people on surrounding that person may be the first to recognize. And so I think the first thing that we have to do is to reach out, when they are unaware, when they refuse to acknowledge to themselves, then we reach out to them and try to keep them company, try to help them relax, try to listen to them, offering some time, because when somebody is feeling grief or feeling down, the company usually helps. Especially, but now we are advised to stay home. So even though we are advised to socially isolate, it doesn't mean we cannot interact with people. So we can still make use of different platforms like social media to remain connected. And once we see these symptoms present in somebody, then maybe we can slowly bring it up to them, ask them how they're feeling, how they're coping. Maybe we could also suggest on ways to cope. And if that person still feels, or maybe somehow they will recognize that there's something wrong, we can lead them to proper people for help.
Proper channels, basically, right? So you personally need to know the right channels so that you can refer them to the right channels. Otherwise, you're the blind leading the blind, right? And I like the point that you mentioned that the best way to help a friend is actually to listen more than trying to create solutions for them. Does anybody else want to answer this question before I move on to the next one?
I'll add to what
Go ahead, Leah.
Dr.
Yeah.
Goss said, because I'm a big advocate of not venting. And so when, yes, listen, and then offer solutions, not to their problem, but solutions on how to make themselves feel better. So you help them raise their frequency. So you hear them out, but you don't compound the problem. See, a lot of times when we start talking to friends, we end up venting, and that just expands it. See, whatever you focus on, it expands. And so rather than talking about the problem, come up with ways for you to feel better. Because a lot of times anxiety can really be removed by or managed, not necessarily removed, managed by doing more things that make you feel good, by putting yourself in a happy place.
Okay.
Because you can't meditate when you're having an anxiety attack.
So Leah, it's listening to that person, as Dr. Jerome mentioned a while ago,
Yes.
but not listening to them rant about the problem.
Exactly.
Like listening to them about positive things in life. Okay, that's
Or,
good advice.
hear them out first, and then offer things that you can do together that will make them happier.
Yeah, but don't dwell on the problem or
Don't
the
dwell on the
emotion.
problem.
Okay. Yes. Master Solan, would you like to add, or you want? Should we move to the next question?
I'm good.
Yeah, just want to add, I usually use SWOT analysis with a person. So we focus on reality rather than on making them feel better. Because sometimes making them feel better can delay their realization of lessons. Like if I coach entrepreneurs, they just want to know what's going on with their money market and so on. So I have to make them away from denial by seeing the reality. If they're Mother Teresa clients, I would probably listen as the doctors say, and also move them forward into a practical intelligence. So there are like variations which we use.
I like that insight, Master, because I'm actually an advocate of treating yourself like the way you treat your business. Because, in your business, you take care of it, you plan it, you create your SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Why don't people do it for their lives, right? So that's a good point you brought up there. Okay, the next question we have is it a good decision to cut off people? Nako, yan na. Or quit a job that causes you anxiety and depression? Or do I have to face it and endure? So, tough question because lalo na now everybody's losing their jobs. Would you like to take a crack at it? I don't know. Solen, would you want to take a crack at it? Or balik natin kay Doc Jerome muna? Doc Jerome muna.
Don't save me for last. Don't save me for last.
Okay. All right, Doc Jerome, this one's for you.
I think we all should, we all have the best understanding of ourselves. And I think it's fair to ourselves if we set boundaries. If you know that this person is toxic, if you know that this person is making you feel worse than better, then I think you can set boundaries for the meantime. You don't necessarily have to cut off the lines for good. I believe that it's not wise to burn bridges, but you can set boundaries. You can, for a while, stay away from a very toxic individual while you are also facing your own problems. Now, as for the job, now I think it's primordial that we save jobs. We stick to our jobs because it gives us some sense of financial security. And I often advise people, if you are going through something very serious, hold off making very serious decisions as well, like very big decisions. I mean, jobs, if you're going through something difficult, maybe you can try to reach out to people, to your family, most especially, before you make that very bold, big decision about quitting your job.
Okay.
I mean, exhaust all possible measures first.
My question is, and I've been dying to ask the follow-up question. What if the person that causes you stress lives with you or is your spouse? What do you cut them off? Yeah. So, Leah, you want to add to that?
There's a lot of that going on right now.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. First of all, I'd like to say Dr. Go is so much nicer than I am because my answer is always going to be if the person is toxic to you, cut them off. But yes,
I hear you.
If they live with you, it becomes very, very different. And this is where we give you coping skills. And there are a lot of coping skills. There are a lot of ways to boundaries is number one. Number two is disassociation. We disassociate you with whatever's irritating you. And number three is whatever's irritating you, because your spouse is your biggest mirror. And so whatever is irritating you,
you might be the problem also.
You need to address in yourself.
Yeah.
And so those are the three things that we advise.
Okay.
And
Master, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I think I have an advantage to some people because I can open up the heart of somebody through energy without arguments. So when the person has a more open heart, it's very easy to talk and do, I'll say, collaborative listening, not attentive. Listen at the same time, you have to really collaborate rather than just attentive listening. And also, we would know exactly if the person is needing a crisis rescue, a crisis therapy, or a crisis management. So if you can differentiate those for that person's need, I think we will be more advantageous to do it, not to lose time by arguing or debating or consensus types of things. So there are many ways that you can open the heart of a person rather than talking. Sometimes people are angry, you cannot really talk to them. You're always in the blame game. So it's better to be quiet and meditate and just bless the person that they have the best life ahead.
Okay, so Doc Jerome says, don't cut them off right away. Leah says, cut them off right away. And Master Del Pez says, open their hearts. Tama? All right. So Len, this next question is for you. Okay, the question is, can an anxious person support another person as well? So can a blind lead another blind person? I guess in that sense, right? Can you help another person?
Personally, I think you can't, in the way that, if you're not feeling good 100% as a person, how can you advise? But in a way, you kind of can, if you share the same type of anxieties. It's something you can talk
Mm.
through together and maybe see light in one another. You know,
Mm.
so it's like this. But I still think that if you want to give advice to someone, you do need to be in the right frame of mind to be able to lead that person to a more positive energy
Okay.
or
Does
positive feeling.
everybody agree? Do all our specialists agree in this particular point? Okay. So everybody
Yes.
says yes. Raise up your yes. All right.
Yeah, great. That's great.
Do we have time for one more question, or okay? If not, okay. Right now, okay. We have time for one more question because we have a lot of questions coming in. And the question is, do you guys want to ask each other any questions? I mean, Solen, you are a very open-minded person. You may want to ask Master Del Pelia or Doc Jerome any particular question, but then you are pretty stable at home, so you may not have any questions.
At the moment, no, because I've been listening to everything they've been saying, so I've learned a lot. Now I know why Nico annoys me, because it's a mirror of myself. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Galing. I can see you guys actually mirror each other. Okay, last question. At this time of the pandemic, there seems to be a really thin line between mental illness and the normal reaction to a difficult situation. And I know people who do not have mental health concerns before, but are now experiencing some sort of emotional difficulties. How can we tell the difference? And that's a question from John Centeno. This is the
Well,
last one.
I think, at this time of the pandemic, because this is totally unfamiliar to all of us, let us also put into context that it's normal to feel some sense of anxiety. We don't just label every person to be experiencing anxiety disorder. However, it becomes a disorder when it is already persistent, when it is already affecting the way we live our normal lives, our functions, and it is already affecting our interpersonal relationship. So there should be that clarification. We don't just call everybody depressed, or when you're sad, you're depressed, because sometimes we tend to use terminologies loosely.
Yeah.
That is probably also the reason why some people are being referred to us, the specialists, in order for them to get an understanding as to what they are really experiencing. But let us put the context that a reaction is definitely expected right now. But the coping mechanisms that we all have may not be able to, we may not be all equipped to cope with this huge challenge that we are now facing. That's why we sometimes would need support.
Okay. Would anybody like to add anything to
May I
this?
say something?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, since I'm dealing with international clients, I see every day really a lot of survival anxiety because of isolation. Really, a lot of people like me, like entrepreneurs, we are really worried about the survival and sustainability. We might be strong, but we don't project that character, that we are really having a lot of anxiety and fear about the future. There's so much ambiguity, vulnerability, volatility, and complexity of the market right now with business and with the global recession. So the pandemic is one thing. It tend to be a push towards a lot more survival problem with the global economy, and also the quarantine and self-isolation, and also losing job is really a big deal today. And I can see that this is the new pandemic, not COVID. Poverty, depression, anxiety, burnout, and even sleep disorders. If you combine them, you cannot approach them in one go. So you need all the best minds, the best frontliners, the best therapists, the best counselors to be able to see this coming. It is really the new pandemic, combining all of those.
Got it. I have a question. Do you guys believe or agree with the statement? If you can name it, you can manage it. Is that something that you guys all believe in, or are there
Yes,
things
yes.
that you cannot? Some are doing this, some are doing this. So I think we can start with Leah. Leah, I want to hear what you have to say.
I don't believe in labeling, and my answer to the previous question is exactly that. Try not to label it. because you need to calibrate to yourself. So if you're not feeling good, call it a sense of discomfort and stop asking why. Because why just attaches you to the problem. See, the brain needs to attach to something. And so whenever you ask why, it causes that attachment to the why, and the victimization and the blaming happens. So my suggestion is, rather than asking why, just tell yourself, acknowledge that you're not feeling good, acknowledge the discomfort, and then direct your brain, direct your attention, direct your focus towards what is needed here. So what are the resources that I need here? What's going to make me feel good? What's going to make me feel better?
Okay, so you don't have to name it as long as you know
No.
yourself. Basically. Okay.
Exactly.
Master and Doc Jerome, I know you guys will disagree, so I want to hear. I want to hear this.
Can I insert something? I think I agree to a certain extent with Dr. Leah.
Yeah.
But in most cases, when the problem is very complex, you need to be able to measure, and you can manage. If you can measure, you can manage. If you can audit the problem, you can control it. So you need that. In business, we always do that. You have to measure the problem and its ramifications. When you can see that, you can audit and you can control it. So I think there's a qualitative solutions to think, and there's quantitative. So if you are both on the attitude developmental solutions versus the quantitative and the attitude development, they have to merge. The soft side and the hard side should be merged. And the solution become contrast and unity.
Got it. Okay, Dr. Jerome, one last
Well,
note.
I agree on a certain extent with Leah. However, I think to some, in essence, you can. I think it also helps when you name it, you can tame it. You know, this is a principle by Dan Siegel, and so I think you have to acknowledge something, and that discomfort that Leah was mentioning earlier is something that we have to recognize in order for us to act on our emotions. You know, emotions need motion, you know, and as what Master Delta mentioned earlier, we need to recognize that there's that internal power that is within us in order for us to find a solution to fix the problem. So recognizing it, naming it, or, you know, calling
Naming
it.
it is like calling it, like if it's naming it as a disease. Is that how you name it? Particularly, like, for example, is it depression? Is it schizophrenia?
You identify the emotion because that's a healthy thing to do, but to label it as a disease, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay. All right. Got it. Okay. Right now, we would like to invite everybody again to join our Facebook community. Please join the Restart Wellness group so that you can get free access to exclusive masterclass. We are having the first one next week with Master Delpe, titled Developing Willpower to Overcome Your Life Crisis. So once again, please join the group so you can get the invites for this exclusive workshop. All right. So processing negative feelings is universal, yet it's also very personal and an individual experience. We've heard, different ways and methods that you can approach. I guess bottom line is whatever feels best for you. Coping and healing is not linear. The progress you may have today may lead to a setback tomorrow, and that's okay. What matters is knowing that you can always try again, and there are people who are willing to help. So right now, we're going to flash on screen a list of institutions that you can reach out to, so that in case you guys are feeling this discomfort, please call the numbers here. So we have Master Delpe's number, Atma Prima Wellbeing Group by Leah, Doc Jerome Go, the Philippine Mental Health Association, the National Mental Health Crisis Hotline, and and then MaxiCare Mental Health Teleconsult, Manila Lifeline Center, In Touch Community Services Crisis, Natasha Goldburn Foundation, and of course, Dial a Friend. So there are so many numbers that you can call aside from the numbers of your friends and family. So please, if you're feeling discomfort, depression, you're feeling sad, please don't keep it to yourself. Reach out and talk to somebody. All right, now let's invite our speakers to leave us with a bit of wisdom and insight. This is the segment we call Restart. And in Restart, we ask each speaker, we give them 2 minutes to give us their plan to restart this particular issue that we're talking to. In this particular case, we're talking about restarting your normal life. So let's start off with Solen.
Okay, I'm just. Is my audio okay? Because is it?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, because I can't really hear you guys. So how am I going to restart? For now, it's like they were saying a while ago. It's to live in the moment, to know that what's happening to everyone right now, we cannot control. No one has control over this. So it's kind of hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But as humans, we are creatures of adaptation. We know how to adapt. Whether it will happen in 2 months or a year, we will adapt to the situation, and there will be a light at the end of the tunnel. That's what I want to assure myself with. And maybe the new normal will be better than the one we all knew. And of course, it's a very difficult time for everyone because everything you grew up learning, you need to relearn. So it is normal that you are feeling all a little bit sad or have a bit of anxiety. So know that it's okay to feel that and that everything will be okay. I believe that.
Thank you so much, Solen. Next, we have Leah. Leah, give us your thoughts. How to restart.
Yeah, we have zero control about what's happening in our externals, but we have complete control about ourselves and how we direct our state of being. So this is the time where we really need to focus on what we're grateful for and what's going to make us feel better, because it's really a time for introspection. When I say spend time with yourself and face that camera inwards, regardless of how many people you live with or regardless of what's going on in your outside world, now is the time to look inwards and like who you are. Learn how to nurture who you are so that you're able to create your own heaven on earth, whatever that may be for you.
Thank you, Leah. Now let's hear from our doctor, Dr. Jerome Go.
In one way or another, we've all lost something because of this pandemic. We've lost the sense of world that we used to know. And it's important for us to acknowledge that loss, that grief that we're all going through. We acknowledge it, we validate it, and we deal with it. Remember that grieving is a no comparison zone. There's no worse grief than his or hers because there's no judgment. You remember that the worst kind of grief is the one that you are experiencing. And so it is normal to grieve, and it's okay not to be okay. However, we all need to recover and start up once again. We have to believe that this is just like all crises in the past, this too will also be over. I hope that we can all remain connected because right now we're staying apart from each other in order for us to be together tomorrow. Let us convert the post-traumatic stress into post-traumatic growth and all believe that we will all be ready for a better normal coming soon.
Thank you so much, Doc Jerome. And finally, of course, last but not the least, we want to hear from our life sage, Master Delpe.
Well, I have one thing I always leave behind to people. When I wake up in the morning before I sleep, I always say, life is great. I'm so blessed. I'm so grateful to life. I keep on saying that 7 times, and I sleep or I wake up and do my work. Life is great. I'm so blessed. I'm so grateful to life. Another thing is one formula doesn't fit all, but I have one common thing I usually use is you have to boost your vitality and willpower. You have to heal your emotions. You have to sharpen your mind and awaken the power of your soul. And the first restart program that we're offering through you, Stephen, thank you for allowing us, is to restart your life, not only with love, not only with a good mind, but really a good stamina and will. So therefore, we're offering you the willpower development to overcome your life crisis as a program on Wednesday. I think that's June 3 at 5 to 6:30 p.m. And that is how we start. And I'm offering this to our loved ones, our co-Filipino. And I hope that this will start our fight against our own limitations and overcome our difficulties in a way that life is great. We are so blessed and we're so grateful to life.
Thank you so much, Master. I know I'm so amazed that, of course, your vision for a renewed Philippines. I know you came back from Texas just to help also the Filipinos. And I know all of our guests as well here are all advocates because they do want to help the Filipinos get back on their feet. So once again, thank you so much, everybody, for sharing your time with us. I know you guys are all busy, despite the fact that we're all at home. And we hope to have you again in a future episode. And I learned so much and hope to see you guys again soon. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you,
having
everyone.
us.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. So more than anything, what we learned today is that we are only human. Allow feelings to come and go without any judgment. Find ways to honor your feelings and how you personally choose to deal with your experience. We must learn not to compare our healing and our process to that of others. All right. Of course, this episode is sponsored by the World Institute for Incurable Diseases. And again, we are inviting everybody to join us in that webinar by joining the Facebook group. Today's episode provided a sense of clarity on what you're feeling and has sparked further interest. Sign up for this free workshop where we develop your willpower to overcome your life crisis. The link is posted right here. And it's also going to be in the Facebook page and chat group of this particular show. And I just want to recap by saying I learned so much today. Things like you need to boost your vitality, you need to boost your internal systems rather than just looking for outlets, which is also not bad. It's good to reach out and talk to somebody. And then if you're talking to somebody, you don't have to necessarily dwell on the thing that's causing stress, but rather try to remember that feeling of happiness and bring yourselves to that point. And of course, from the medical perspective, don't be scared. It's not a stigma to call a doctor. I know that people don't do that because they don't want people to think they're crazy. But I think right now there's a growing awareness that mental health is equally as important as physical health, and of course, as equal as spiritual health. So once again, the final result of our poll was, are you feeling discomfort and sadness lately? 81% says yes, so that went down, and no, 19%. All right, cool. So we'd like to see you in our next episode. Once again, my name is Stephen Koo of Echo Channels, and I'm saying it's not over. It's time to restart.